Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Megan Demina and I'm the Senior Marketing Manager here at GridBuddy. Thank you for taking the time for today's webinar, Supercharge Your Grids, GridBuddy's Low-Code Extensions, with presenter Sophie Critch-Brenton, Customer Success Manager and GridBuddy Product Expert. Before I hand things over, I have just a few housekeeping items. If you're unfamiliar with GridBuddy, we are a CRM application that allows you to easily manage your data in a spreadsheet-like view, all the data you need just a few clicks away. The recording of today's webinar will be available tomorrow afternoon on the GridBuddy's YouTube channel. Don't worry, we'll also email you a direct link of the recording, so no need to screenshot or take hurried notes unless, of course, you want to. Be sure to stay on for the Q&A for the last 15 to 20 minutes of the webinar, and there you'll be able to ask any questions you may have about GridBuddy extensions. Last, if you experience any technical difficulties, please sign off and attempt to reconnect. You can also call the dial-in number provided in your invitation if you experience any issues with the audio. And with that, it is my pleasure to get this webinar started. Hi, Sophie. How are you doing?
Hey, everybody. It is a pleasure to be here. And I just realized I skipped the slide where you can see who we are. So I'm going to jump back there. Everybody, I'm Sophie on the left. That was Megan. Thank you, Megan.
Thanks. Thank you.
So here's our quick agenda. I don't want to spend too much time talking about the extensions because I want to spend most of our time showing them to you. So first, in a nutshell, we're going to, define them in case you're unfamiliar with what they are. And then I'll show you the 10 we're going to jump into today. There are way more than 10, but we had to pick only a few for the hour. And then I'm going to demo each of them for you and definitely leave time for Q&A. If you have questions about the items we demo, other functions, any questions at all are welcome at that period. Okay, so GridBuddy extensions. So what an extension is a JavaScript or a CSS file. They used to be called custom code. And if you're on a version of GridBuddy older than 7.0, that's what you're still going to see in the Grid Wizard. But we've renamed them to be extensions because it's, it could be as simple as just a couple of words, a couple lines of code. It's not really a customization, and we didn't want people to get that idea. So extensions are JavaScript or CSS. And what they can do is basically take GridBuddy and augment it to include functions that aren't out of the box. So extensions, extend GridBuddy to do additional functions that you might need or you might want, such as hiding features on the grid, hide the grid title, or add functions like import from Excel or attach a record. Things that you need to do on your grid, you would like to do on your grid, but that aren't built into the core product. So I'm going to show you a bunch of those today. Let's talk about them. Oh yeah, there's a swoosh. All right. So these are the 10 extensions that we're going to demo for you. And I'm showing you the list. I'm not going to read through it because you can read it. But I do want you to take a moment now, look at the list, and just see if anything really stands out so you know when to pay attention if you're multitasking. And I'll show this list again during the Q&A session so that you can remember what we talked about. Okay, demo time. Hold on, let me do a new share. Here we go. Okay, so GridBuddy extensions. All right, the very first extension that we're going to talk about is display conditional fields in the data card based on record type. Okay, so displaying conditional fields in the data card based on record type. What that means is in my data card right here, I'm looking at a couple of fields, forecast category, forecast comments, campaign name. And I'll just give you a caveat here. This is my demo org, so some of the fields, maybe they don't make 100% of sense in the real world. Just bear with me. So let's just say when you create a new opportunity, this is an opportunity grid, and if the record type is new business, what you want your reps to do is populate these 3 fields. But potentially, the fields might vary if it's a different record type. So here you can see renewal has 3 different fields, or sorry, 4. Some of them overlap and some of them don't. So new business has campaign name. Maybe with new business, you want to link your campaigns, but with renewals, that's not as important. What you need to know are, the salespeople and whether there's any open activity. So this is a simple extension. It's totally dynamic. So if I change this from renewal or from new business to renewal, you're going to see the fields change immediately before I even save. Classic GridBuddy. And the point here would be, you don't want to show your sales reps all the fields. You just want to give them what they need, so they don't have to waste any time trying to remember what is necessary and what is not necessary. You don't have to have 15 fields here and mark some of them required. Instead, you can just say for renewals, it's these. For new business, it's those. And that's our first extension. Now, another extension that, I'm just going to refresh the grid real quick. Another extension that you might be interested in if you're using data cards is a button to expand all your data cards at once. So here, I can click the little icon, see my data cards one by one. But let's just say you have 10 new opportunities here, and you want to go in. They're all, let's say, renewals. You want to go in and assign the AE. So you could do a mass update and select them. You could also turn on this little extension, which is a button at the top of your grid, which will open up all your data cards immediately. And then, assuming you filtered your grid, so you're seeing what you need to see, you can then immediately just jump to the fields and update them. They're visible right in front of you. You don't have to click every single record. And then when you're done, you can collapse it, hit save once. You've saved a whole bunch of work with just expanding and collapsing using this little button. Step 2, or extension 2, add a button. You can also add an extension that just automatically opens your data cards. So let's just say you find yourself using this button a lot because you're always going in and you're updating fields in the data card. Of course, you could move that field to the primary area and put it at the top level, but if you didn't want to do that, you could also put in an extension that automatically expands your data cards. So when I load this grid, you can see these data cards open up pre-expanded. It's just another way to view your data. And then, in theory, you could add that button here to collapse them if you wanted to. But then when you come to the grid initially, they will be expanded. Okay, step 3. Create a new record within editable related columns. All right, I'm sure some of you have noticed that when you create a grid with multiple objects, so this is a leads grid and it has 2 children objects, editable related columns bring in those children to the top level and show you the fields from the first column in that child. So here I'm seeing my campaign members child brought into my top level, and I'm seeing comma separated a list of those campaign members. I can click more and I can see the grid. And a lot of us turn this off and we save that horizontal space, but let's just say this is useful. You like seeing all the campaign members for each of these leads. And even better, what you'd like to do is hit more, open this up, and add new campaign members right here. So this extension puts a new button onto your editable related column, or your ERC. I can click new right here. And as you can see, it's happening in my pop-up. It's also happening in my child. So it's not happening anywhere else. It's still in your grid. It's creating a kind of a portal into your child. But this way you don't have to, I'll collapse these. You don't even have to expand your grid. You can just hit the new right here in the pop-up, populate your campaign member, and then hit close, hit save. One save saves all your work. So you can go in here and update your campaign members from the top level, updating your associated child object for each lead. All right. The 4th extension on our list is renaming the default filter, or hiding the admin that appears to the left of admin filters. So for example, just to show you out of the box, what you can see right here is in my filter menu, I always have a default filter. The default filter is just what's there by default when you load the grid. And it might not be all your data. You might have set it up in Grid Wizard 3 to show, to show a specific filtered list of data. It might be sorted a specific way, grouped a specific way, but it's still called the default filter out of the box. Also, admin filters that you, the admin, set up in step 3 of Grid Wizard, they have the word admin in parentheses to the left. So if you don't like that, what you can do is rename the default filter and hide admin. So right here, what you're seeing are two filters, my accounts. This is my default filter, but I've renamed it in a very simple extension. So it doesn't say default. Instead, it shows me my accounts, because what I'm looking at is an accounts grid filtered by, me, if that were me. And there's another admin created filter for all accounts so that I can also jump immediately into a grid that's not filtered by me, but it doesn't say admin in parentheses. It just says all accounts, but it's still an admin filter. So that's what this extension can do. All right, number 5, hide grid artifacts like view record details, show, read only, grid name, etc. So on your grid, there are a lot of buttons across the top. There's a grid name at the top. And then in these little vertical ellipses, you have some default out of the box actions like view record detail and open record detail. If you wanted to, you can hide some of these things. It's up to you what you hide. It's all available for hiding. So for example, from these vertical ellipses, I have removed view and open record detail. Maybe I don't want, I don't want my end users accessing the records that easily. Of course, they could probably access them some other way, but right now, they're no longer a click away from my grid. Similarly, maybe I don't want all these buttons across the top. Maybe I don't want my users to turn it into read only. I don't want them to filter. I don't want them to have the show option. And maybe I don't even need my grid name across the top because, I'm in a tabbed workspace. It's a little bit redundant. So you can hide any and all of those things. Here's an example. No grid name saves me some vertical space. I've hidden a bunch of buttons, which saves me more space. And this is really great for mobile, where space is crucial, especially vertical space. And that's another very simple extension. Okay, here's a really popular one, import from Excel/CSV. I want to start this one off by saying there are some limitations. This is just the starting point. This is a very simple extension. It only works on single object grids. So if you have children in your grid, it's not going to work. It doesn't support some fields like owner. And we have, the extension itself has a comment listing every detail. All of our extensions do. So we are going to provide these extensions to you, most of these, and they do have, in the code, there's a comment that clarifies exactly what you need to change, if anything, to make it work. So import from Excel. What this extension does is it gives you a button right here. And when I click it, it says paste. Now I'm going to actually do it. So I need to change my share really quick. All right, so one of the limitations is your Excel spreadsheet or your CSV needs to pull in the API names across the top of all the required fields. Of course, you can leave optional fields out because they're optional, but required fields need to be here, and it needs to be the API name. Dates need to be formatted exactly. You have to have all 4 year digits. So I'm going to just copy these, Command-C. And then go back to my share. I'm going to click import and I'm going to paste. And it tells me this will create 9 records. Do you want to apply? I hit apply. And here are my 9 new records. So awesome, super simple, but very functional if you can meet the simplicity requirements. I hit save. I've got my 9 new records. Of course, I could do mass update after that. If I needed to, I can modify some of them right now, you know, as needed. Import from Excel. All right. The default Picklist values tab. So this is number 7 on our list. Set a default Picklist value on new records. So let's just say when you create new, there are some fields that you always populate the same way. And so a default value would be nice, but you don't have that set up on your object. This being the accounts grid. So on your account object, you know, you don't have a default setup. In your grid, you can use a simple extension and you can set up a default. For example, here I have account type defaulting to press. I have account executive defaulting to AppBuddy. Because every time I create a new account in this grid, I always select these things. So I set up a simple extension that puts that in for me and saves me a couple of clicks. Okay, data cards with rows. Data cards with rows. So number 8, format your data card into sections. So if you're using data cards, well, let me find a better example. Data cards, as you know, you can select the fields that go in them in Grid Wizard 2, and you can drag and drop to reorder the fields. And then they appear when you click the icon, you know, left to right in the order that you specified, which is typically fine. However, if you were to put in, say, 50 fields in the data card, it might be a little bit overwhelming. It might be hard to, you know, find your way around. Or maybe you have a very specific order and layout that you'd like to see these fields in, no matter what. So this extension allows you to format your data cards in a really pretty way. For example, here, you can add a little header above each area. I have 4 areas, 4 rows set up in this one, but you can have more or you can have fewer. Between each row is a horizontal line, giving you a nice visual separator. And of course, the header is optional. You don't have to include it. You could comment it out. And then in the extension, you tell it which fields go in here, into each area. And it's very beautiful. This is great for huge quantities of data. Yeah, just really visually separates it out for you. Data cards in rows. Okay. Oh, we're charging right along. I hope this is not too fast. We can always go over them again. All right, second to last, number 9, attach a file to single or multiple records. This is not actually an extension. This is a custom action. So this is a Visualforce page. The limitations to the attachments are Visualforce limitations, so whatever Salesforce supports. And the way I have it set up here is a button at the top of my grid. And what this button does is it allows me to attach to one record or multiple records. I select them, I click the button, and I can now choose a file to attach from my computer. And once I choose it, I'm not really gonna put something in there. Once I choose it, I click upload. Well, actually, yes, I will, just for fun. Put a picture of my kid. I choose upload. And after a moment, I'm going to see a success message. And now this file has been successfully uploaded to all the records I selected. When I hit close, I can see no change because the grid doesn't show me the attachment. But if I were to go to any of these records, for example, this one, I will see that attachment in the related files for that record. So over here in notes and attachments, here's the file that I just uploaded. And it's going to be there for each of these records. So super simple way to add attachments. This button is for mass attachments, but you can also add them into the vertical ellipses for the actions. So you could say for each individual record, add attachment right here. And that would allow you to do it one by one, record by record. Same exact function otherwise. Add attachments. Super cool. All right, last one on the list, number 10, the 3-level grid. All right, so I saved this one for last because it's really, really cool. And it's maybe one of the most complex ones. But keep in mind, we have written all of these up for you, and they will be sent to you after this webinar. I'll give you a sneak peek in a moment what that's going to look like. But some of these guys, some of these extensions, some of them are ready to use, just like that. Some of them are really simple. You just have to add an object name or something like that. But some of them might require some customization, some modification. This one definitely, the 3-level grid. And if you have a developer on your team, of course, put that person on it. You know, send them the JavaScript and the CSS, and they can tweak it however you like. GridBuddy also provides that service, just FYI, if you don't have a developer or you don't have the bandwidth. Okay, so having said that, the 3-level grid. 2-level grids are old hat, right? We're all familiar with the top level grid here and the children grid. This is my 2nd level here. And just in case any of you are wondering, I have a custom theme turned on with a hover behavior on this grid. That's what you're seeing with this gray bar, which I love, just to show me exactly where my mouse is. And that's just out of the box, custom themes, Grid Wizard step 2. Okay, so this grid has a top level. It has 4 2nd level objects. And I have added a 3rd level. So here, if I open up my opportunity product, something that you aren't going to see on a typical grid is this drop-down arrow. If I expand this drop-down arrow, you're going to see a 3rd level grid. So here we have top level grid, 2nd level grid, 3rd level grid. Beautiful. And this 3rd level grid is actually set up to be in forecast view, you know, in Grid Wizard 3, where you can group by rows, group by columns. So this, under my opportunity product, I have my opportunity product schedule in my forecast view, so I can see for each of my products, for each opportunity, the schedule out across time. Pretty radical, huh? I'll just expand another one. Takes a moment to load. Oh, and then if there are no records found, so for example, this product doesn't have a schedule, this is what you'll see. So this allows you to have a grid that doesn't just attach, you know, link you to your opportunity, takes you to related contacts, related products, and then one step further, schedule for that product, for that opportunity. And it doesn't have to be the product and the schedule, it can be accounts, you know, any objects that can connect to each other, you can do this. And we have written this up and we will provide it to you. The 3-level grid. Okay. So that's it. That's our 10 extensions. That went a lot faster than I thought it would go.
It's all right. We're getting a lot of questions. So
okay, so I'm going to put the list back up and then I'll probably jump right back over to questions in a moment. Go ahead.
Perfect. Yes. So please review the list. If you have questions about a specific extension, feel free to ask them either in the chat or the QA applet at the bottom, or icon, I guess. You'll see a QA icon at the bottom of your screen. You can ask questions there too. So I think the first most helpful thing might be how to enable these extensions. Brianna and I think a few other people were actually asking how to enable the extensions.
Awesome. Yes, I see that. I did not go over this, so I will. Enabling an extension is pretty straightforward. So let's just go to the Grid Wizard. In the Grid Wizard, and before I say anything else, I want to introduce the new Grid Wizard. Ta-da! With version 7.2, which launched last week, we have redesigned the grid wizard, but never fear, everything is here. We've added a little bit more like knowledge base, usage dashboards. So you have more at your fingertips. You haven't lost anything. Your metadata refresh is here. Your managed folders, tabs, new grids, grid menu, everything's here. It just looks a lot better and modern. So extensions live under Manage Extensions. And if you're in a version older than 7.0, it will say Manage Custom Code. Either way, you click on it and Manage Extensions takes you into the Manage Extension view, which hasn't changed. And then on the left, what you'll see are all your CSS files, if you have any, and then all of your JavaScript. And extensions can be set up as individual files. So for example, CSS, it's a one-off. JavaScript, it's a one-off. But you can also set it up to be global, which means applying it to all of your grids by default. So then if you want to enable or create an extension, all you have to do is click the new button, give it a name, choose what type of file it's going to be, JavaScript, cascading style sheets, or global. Choose if it's a grid or a tabbed page that you want to apply it to, and then paste in the code and save. That's it. Now that creates the extension in your grid wizard. But if you want to apply it to a grid, you need to select that grid. So I'll just select any grid. And you can do this from your grid, from the More menu, but you can also do it from the grid wizard. If you select your grid in the grid wizard, you're in step 1, then you scroll down to the very bottom and you're going to have your Manage Extensions area. On the left, you have all of your existing extensions. You have to build them first. CSS at the top, JavaScript at the bottom, and then you just select whatever you want and it will move from left to right. The green plus adds it, the red minus removes it. So you can see this file in particular has CSS applied, JavaScript applied, and one global JavaScript, meaning I can't turn it off here. It's global, it's applied by default. And as soon as I apply it, my extension here, whichever ones I want, I hit save. I hit close and refresh, which will close, or sorry, I'm in the grid wizard. I launch my grid or I access my grid however I choose to, and the extension will apply. Now I do want to say one other thing, which is these extensions apply top down. So if you have 5 JavaScript files or 5 CSS files, you're going to get this one first, then this one, then this one. So if they affect each other or they sit on top of each other, just make sure you put them in the correct order here. You can just drag them up and down right here. And that's how you enable an extension onto a grid. What's next?
Okay. So yeah, we've got a lot of questions. So one person is asking, are these extensions only available on unlimited licenses?
So the custom code or the extension function in the grid wizard is part of the unlimited package. Yes.
Okay. And then is the code, okay, this is actually, I've answered, I think, a few people on this, but I'll just say, is the code on the site somewhere, or are the default extensions that already exist in GridBuddy OTB?
Okay, so extensions by default are not part of the core product. And to give you guys some background, extensions typically are created when a customer says, hey, I really want to do this. And they have our delivery team, they buy like 10 hours, our delivery team builds something out for them custom. Because to update the core product, can take many, many months. There's a huge backlog of features we want to implement. It all has to go through that prioritization process. But an extension, if you can write JavaScript, you can write an extension. So these extensions are not part of the core product for whatever reason. They haven't hit the top of the queue. A lot of them are planned for some point, but right now they are only available as extensions. They're not in the product. They're not in your GridBuddy unless you have manually added them yourself in the Manage Extensions window. That said, on our support page, we do have a customization guide. And Megan's going to be sending this out to you guys, so you don't have to go find it. And actually, I think we're about to update it to include all of these new extensions. But we do have an extension and customization guide. It looks just like this. You're going to receive it shortly after this call. And it includes not just, you know, how to get this set up and give you some background, like for your developers or for you. It also includes these extensions that we covered today. And I put in a few more. So in this area right here, these are links, like, for example, defaulting fields. If I jump down that area, this is the actual JavaScript. It gives you a little bit of a summary, tells you the type of code it is. This JavaScript, you copy it, paste it into your extension in the GridBuddy extension, manage extensions page, and you're good. Display conditional fields, you know, these are all the extensions we talked about. So each one of these is going to have an area that you edit if it needs any editing, and then a comment that says do not modify anything below. So, you know, pretty straightforward for the most part. So yeah, to cut short, these are not in the product. These are not available out of the box, but they will be coming into your inbox shortly. What's
Perfect.
next?
Thank you, Sophie. Can GridBuddy function in a way where you click on a layer or client name in the grid or on the grid and it opens up below for data entry? Specifically, I guess I'm looking more so for when you have a grid with several fields and wanting to limit amount of time you scroll across.
Let me see if I get it. Okay, so you have a grid. Actually, will you read that one more time?
Yes, yeah. So can GridBuddy function in a way where you click on a layer or client name on the grid and it opens up below for data entry? I'm looking more so for when you have a grid with several fields and wanting to limit the amount of time you scroll across.
Okay, so I'm going to assume that that means, like, here's an account grid, and here's my client name, Intel, and I click on it to expand these children. So I can now enter new contacts. I can enter new opportunities. If I had added tasks here, I could enter a task. And then in my existing fields, I've put, you know, I am the admin, so I can choose what fields show up here. I've placed the most important fields to me across the top, and I can now go in and I can set whatever data I need.
Yeah.
So yes, that's possible unless I misunderstood.
Yeah, I was going to say, Kwame, if we didn't answer that question, let us know. Let me make sure. Oh, yeah, that says thank you. That could possibly work.
Fantastic. Yeah, reach out if that's interesting. That is exactly what GridBuddy does. everything fully editable right here, up to 3 layers, or 4 if you're bold, as I showed you with that extension, but 2 out of the box.
Perfect.
What's next?
So I've seen this question a few times too. Olga's asking, can not unlimited users still get extensions? And how do I know if I'm unlimited?
Okay, how do you know if you're unlimited? I think if you go to setup, installed packages, manage install packages, you should see if you're on unlimited versus enterprise. But a quick way to find out is if you go to your grid wizard and you scroll down and you see, or if you're in the new view, go to grid management. If you see manage extensions, you can do extensions. Or if you see manage custom code, then you can do custom code. If you don't see it, it means that your package doesn't include it. And what I would do is connect with your AppBuddy account executive and see what kind of deal they can get you in terms of upgrading to unlimited or in terms of just getting you access to this one function. Yeah.
Perfect. So I think I'm going to ask this because Kwame has a follow-up to their question. And how about truncating decimal points? Can this be achieved?
In GridBuddy?
Yes.
Oh, interesting. Yes, with an extension. So I assume we're talking about this right here. So, oops, sorry. So for example, here I have 2 decimal points. Remember that GridBuddy doesn't offer formatting options other than coloring, you know, fields based on certain criteria. conditional formatting. So this is just pulling in my amount field from my object where I've specified what that object should look like. So in terms of truncating, you would do that in Salesforce in your object. The grid would pull it in. But if you didn't want to or weren't able to do it in your object, you could certainly write an extension, JavaScript snippet to control your decimal points. But we don't. I don't have that at my fingertips. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Might be worth asking your sales rep.
Perfect. And you can also reach out to support@appbuddy.com and they can help you through some of those questions too.
Yes.
So Eileen is asking, what is GridWizard 2 and 3? I'm only using one tab that says GridWizard. Are these extensions only available on the, oh yeah, okay, so.
GridWizard, okay. So yes, I have mentioned GridWizard 1, 2, and 3. And so let me clarify. You're right. There's one tab for GridWizard. That's the only GridWizard tab. And on that GridWizard landing page, you have a whole bunch of stuff you can do here, like refresh the metadata, et cetera, et cetera. But once you select a grid from the grid dropdown menu, it launches you into the GridWizard steps 1, 2, and 3. So once you're in a grid, editing a grid or creating a new grid, you're going to see 3 steps at the top. Step 1 configures your grid. You can set up access. You can set up the extensions. Step 2 is where you select all the fields that show up on your grid and in what order. And you can set up your actions there. You can set up your custom themes like my hover behavior. Step 3 is where you set up your filters. So GridWizard 1, 2, and 3 are only relevant when you're editing a specific grid or creating a new grid.
Perfect. So many questions.
I love it.
Yeah, can you demo how to customize our grids to display the dark gray line when we hover over a record?
Ooh, yes, I can. It's really easy, totally out of the box. I'm pleased that you asked that because I think it's awesome. All right, so this is the dark gray line we're talking about. It's on hover, and this is how you set it up. So I could do this from the GridWizard. If I go to my GridWizard, I could select this grid. But if I'm already on the grid, it's even more efficient to go to my More menu and go to Edit Fields, which takes me to step 2 of the GridWizard. This is my GridWizard. If I have access to my GridWizard, steps 1, 2, and 3 are right here. Step 1, Edit Settings. 2, Edit Fields. 3, Edit Admin Filters. So I'm going to go to step 2. And that's step 2 for this specific grid. It opens up in this overlay. And so here I can see, all the fields on my grid, not relevant for this. Conditional formatting. Oh, no, sorry. Themes. Step 1, sorry. Mental lapse. Hold on. Okay. GridWizard step 1, custom themes. So custom themes are out-of-the-box ways to customize your grid in terms of color, font color, bold, italics, background color, button color, header color, etc. So you can see I have a selected theme called row color highlighting, and I can go to add and edit, which will open up the manage custom themes window, which I could also access from my GridWizard. I'm gonna just get it right from here, open it in a new tab. Okay, so this theme, or I could create new, but I'll just show you how I set this one up. I gave it a name that made sense to me. You might call it on hover. The scope is a grid. So I have it applied to that one grid, but if I wanted to, I could make it global and it would be defaulted onto every single grid that exists now or that will exist in the future. These are the existing options that you have for themes. So you can color your parent headers, related object headers, your children objects in your grid, your data rows, that's your data area, summary rows, group, you can read it. Anyway, this is the hover, data row hover / selection. I chose this gray. I didn't change the text color. And then if I wanted to, I could add more to it. I could say also do this, also do that, but I'm not going to. This alone gives me this hover. So straightforward, out of the box, step 1 of the GridWizard, edit settings. what's next.
Perfect. Sorry.
No, not a problem.
Wendy's asking, is what you're showing manage custom themes out of the box, or do I need to grab the extension?
Custom themes is totally out of the box. Yep. So on your grid wizard, it's built in here below extensions. It's its own little area, part of GridWiz. It's part of a GridBuddy out of the box, but none of these themes will exist. Obviously, you have to build your own themes. I built these. So you're gonna have no themes, but you just go in there, add, edit, click new, and play around with it till you get an idea of what it looks like, what you like. Everybody has it though.
Perfect. So Olga has a few questions, so I'm just gonna ask, and then if you need me to repeat them, let me know. So I have a manage extensions link, but there's no extensions available. And also your screen has managed themes links, but she does not. And I do not have themes available anywhere.
Oh, I wonder if I misspoke. Okay, hold on, let's just check. So you guys, a really highly recommended solution to answering questions that you think you know the answer to, but suddenly you're wondering, is the user guide. The user guide is a fantastic resource. I use it all the time when I think I know something and then I'm suddenly wondering if I don't. Manage custom themes. So the user guide covers every feature in GridBuddy, talks about how to use it, where it is, what you can do with it. It should be available. It does not say unlimited only. Okay, so typically if it's an unlimited only feature, like this, you can see manage extensions, unlimited only. You're not gonna have this if you're on GridBuddy Enterprise. So you should have manage custom themes. Go to your grid wizard, open a grid. Remember, you do have to launch a grid from the grid menu. It's not on the landing page. And then you can add it. What, am I right about that? Sheesh. Anyway, yeah, you should have it. Everyone should have it. Oh yeah, you should have it right here. Manage themes, under manage extension.
So Olga's still saying nope.
Okay, Olga, reach out to support.
Yep.
Email support@appbuddy.com and they'll figure it out.
Okay, sorry about that. And we'll have someone follow up with you too, Olga. Sorry about that. Okay, so Matthew's asking, can you add a third level data grid which has a data card too in the third level grid?
Yeah, absolutely. Each of these grids. So let me show you, actually, I'll show you how these, so the way that you build a third level grid, obviously I'm not gonna dig into it in detail, but you build a parent grid and you build a child grid. So I'm just gonna show you at a very high level what you can do. Basically, you have two separate grids. Each grid can have a parent and a child. So this is my parent grid. This is the top level grid. It has data cards on. It has a child with data cards. It could have 4 children. It's just a regular grid. And then, And then my child grid, similarly, the child grid can have a child. So that would be your 4-level grid. And your child grid can have data cards and as many fields as you want. Now this child grid doesn't, but it certainly could because it's just a regular grid that you're bringing in with some CSS and some JavaScript to act as a grandchild in that parent grid. So, you're gonna be doing you're gonna filter, you're gonna have to have an FPF value that connects it. And you're gonna, in the JavaScript, you're gonna modify a few other things. And that is how you make the child show up. You just can't see it in this example because it's in the forecasting view. Yes, so yeah, short answer, yes.
Okay, so Eileen is asking, I'm having issues with conditional formatting because it only allows for one criteria for the color. Yep. Is there an extension or any other way to use conditional formatting?
Okay, so that's a really common question. This is the conditional formatting area right here. And you're saying if, let's just say if account name equals this, then color, whatever field, the same field or a different field, this color. So it's one criteria, one result, one color. You could certainly write a snippet of JavaScript that would enhance this if you wanted to, or it would probably not enhance this, it would do it all by itself. But we are also, we do have some conditional formatting enhancements coming out in the next few versions of GridBuddy. So just keep an eye on the release notes if you don't feel like writing the JavaScript.
Perfect.
But right now that's how it is though. Yes, it's a little bit limited, but you can, of course, what I would do is create multiple rules. If you want to have multiple things affected, create one rule for each, even if it's the same field.
Great.
If that makes sense.
So Eileen is actually saying she doesn't have themes either, and she's asking if we need to get the latest version to have this.
Well, why don't we look at the release notes? So if you guys are ever curious about when something became available, GridBuddy release notes are available from the support page. So this version 7.2 just came out last week with a bunch of, the new landing page and so on. And I'm going to do a quick find. So custom themes came out in versions 5.7, 5.8, and 5.9. So a while ago, but I certainly have seen people on the versions this old. If you don't have custom themes, you might be on a version prior to 5.7, 8, or 9. So yeah, I would recommend upgrading to the new version. Just go to the App Exchange and go to GridBuddy and click Get It Now. Definitely. And I would recommend doing that as often as you can, working within your system. But every new release has, small bug fixes, user experience improvements, as well as new features.
And Olga's actually saying that she has upgraded to the newest version, so we'll just have
email support.
Yeah, we'll have someone reach out, and then Eileen, if you're still having some issues too, reach out to us, and I'm sure we'll have someone follow up with you just to make sure that you're all set, ready to go.
Yeah, just shoot an email to support@appbuddy.com. Do it right now. They'll get back in touch with you really quickly, and they'll probably have an immediate answer.
It's true. They are pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
So if anyone has any other questions, I might have missed some just because they were flooding in there for a minute. So I'm going to give everyone a minute to ask any last questions. And then I did want to just mention that we will be following up with the customization guide and the recording of this webinar as well, in a follow-up email. And then we also are sending out, release notes whenever we have a new update. If you're not getting those, please reach out to your customer success manager and let them know, because we do have an email opt-in that you can subscribe just to our release notes and only receive those if that's what you're interested in. So I don't see any other questions coming in, so we'll go ahead and stop there and give everyone about 10 minutes back in their day. So this was a quick look at our super flexible GridBuddy extensions, and if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to support@appbuddy.com or to your, well, that's probably the best way to reach out for any help implementing those. And then again, we'll send out the GridBuddy Extensions customization guide as well as the recording. And thank you all for being here. Thank you, Sophie, for leading us through GridBuddy Extensions. And we hope we see you next time.